Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Bob Weeks, 2451 Regency Lakes Court in Wichita. First of all, I say thank you to Council Member O'Donnell for objecting or just questioning some of the language that appears in these city documents. You know, whenever we have a public hearing, and today's not a public hearing, at least a statutory public hearing, the recommended action by city officials is close the public hearing. It's not listen to what the people say and then close the public hearing. It's simply close the public hearing. And oftentimes I think that people think that that's the attitude of the city. But addressing the issue today, I do appreciate some of the predecessor speakers before me. They're very, I think, accurate and perceptive concerns that the issuance of this letter of intent really just makes the public hearing on September 13th a meaningless exercise. And I think the actions of Mr. Bell and Mr. Knable say in going through, I think, the same presentation that they're going to give at the September 13th public hearing just says that really today, and the action that we take today is in fact the public hearing about this project. I might remind this council that, at least by my memory, the last time someone felt the city reneged on a letter of intent, it resulted in a lawsuit that the parties took all the way to the Kansas Supreme Court. So I think that people do place a lot of stock in these letters of intent. I would ask Mr. Burke, if he cares to answer, if this has no meaning, why are we going through all this today? It just simply boggles the imagination that we would go through all of this to issue a meaningless piece of paper that really does not have the intent of the city behind it. Now, I do have to agree with Council Member Miller that this is not a public hearing. This is just us, you know, talking amongst friends, so to speak. A public hearing has to be published and there has to be notice. And as far as I know, the first time that anybody in the public became aware of this letter of intent item today was on Thursday when the City Council agenda for today was released. That doesn't even give people time to do any sort of preparation. That was the first time that all the detail of the incentives that you see here, that's the first time they were generally made available to the public. Of course, the parties who will receive these subsidies have known about this for some time, so have their bureaucratic and political enablers too. So the issuance of this letter of intent today, should the City Council decide to do so, to me it's an affront of the rule of law. And we are a country, a state, and a city where the rule of law should be more important than the whims, the needs, the desires of any one person or even group of people or even a city council. The rule of law is what separates us from many other countries in the world. So I think that we just need to be very careful and realize that if we do this, we really negate the purpose of the public hearing. I personally think the city is going to be vulnerable to a lawsuit if we do this, because it means that the public hearing is really just a shadow exercise that means nothing at all. But since we're having what we think is a public hearing today, we got it. You know, a lot of people have talked about the aspects of the project. I just want to remind this council that last year the Wichita Eagle alleged that David Burke, who is the managing member of this project, I'm going to quote here from the Wichita Eagle newspaper. It said, "Downtown's Wichita leading developer David Burke represented himself as an agent of the city without the city's knowledge or consent to cut his taxes on publicly owned property he leases in the Old Town Cinema Plaza, according to court records and the city attorney." That article and a companion article went on to quote a number of people as having trouble with and being concerned with, to various degrees, the action that Burke took to reduce his property taxes, which, by the way, funded a TIF district that then was upside down for a short while. The people the Wichita Eagle mentioned as being concerned include City Attorney Gary Riebensdorf, still in that same office, City Council Member Jeff Longwell, still in that same office, City Council Member LaVonna Williams, now our Vice Mayor, then Vice Mayor Jim Skelton, now on the Sedgwick County Commission, and City Manager Robert Layton in the same position as well. All of these people expressed concern of one sort or another with the actions of Mr. Burke. In particular, Manager Layton said, according to the Eagle, anyone has the right to appeal their taxes, but he added that, no doubt, that defeats the purpose of the TIF. That's the most damaging quote of all, I think. Despite the fact that nearly all the property taxes Burke pays directly enriches taxes himself, and only him, he still doesn't want to pay them. And according to the Wichita Eagle, not me, this is the Wichita Eagle, he engaged in a deceptive act in order to reduce those property taxes. Mayor, council members, part of transparency and public trust is the public hearing process. Despite the claims we've heard today by city staff, the letter of intent, the issuance of this letter of intent disrespects that process. It is the opposite of transparency. It destroys trust. I would ask you, Mayor Brewer, and any city council member who intends to vote in favor of this letter of intent, to explain why you are willing to toss aside a meaningful public hearing, a statutory public hearing, just to benefit one person and his business partners. And thank you for your attention. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.